Hey guys, welcome back to DASKA Discusses. I thought I'd change my setting around a bit today, so today I'm going to be discussing episode 4, 5 and 6 from Star Wars. Now I know I've done episode 1, 2 and 3 separately, but I'm thinking, well, you know what? I have to get through these before episode 9 comes out, so I'm going to give you guys, well, a bit of a discussion on episode 4, 5 and 6. 3 films that I hold real dear to my heart since I was a kid, so let's do this. Now before I get into the whole reviews, guys, I just want to say that with the original trilogy, I mean, I was like, what? I was very young when Return of the Jedi came out, so I was about 5 or 6. It was in the late 80s where I got into watching them because, you know, my parents used to watch them as well, and I find that the Star Wars films for me have got this nostalgic kind of feel for me, obviously as they do with a lot of people, but I really do love the Star Wars films, all 3 of them. And you know, the prequels came out and I've gone through all them, and we'll talk about episode 7 and 8 at a later time, and obviously episode 9, but with the original trilogy, I'm just going to discuss what I really enjoyed about them, my ratings from them, and things that I may not have enjoyed. And if you want to leave your comments, go ahead guys, but yeah, I'm just saying that basically with these 3 films, they hold a real special place in my, I guess you could say, enjoying films as a kid, and they played an integral part of me growing up and loving films. And I thank George Lucas for creating it, even though he does cop a lot of flack. I just think, you know, even with the stuff with how he redid the Greedo thing, we'll talk about, you know, McClucky or whatever, it's ridiculous, but I'm talking about the films that I grew up watching, which were the original versions of what he did. So, with Star Wars A New Hope, well, how could you go past this? I mean, as a kid, I loved watching it. I'm not going to talk about what my favorites are yet, but in terms of finding out who Luke is and his story, meeting Darth Vader, Princess Leia and the Death Star plans, how it all works on, I'm guessing back in the 70s when people first watched this, it would have been amazing to see. Now, obviously, I saw it later on VHS as a kid, and I saw it before all the special editions came out and such, and how I'm not saying they wrecked the feel of it, but I still have the original VHS that I taped off Australian TV, and there's something about watching it in that format. Yes, it's blurry, but without all the special edition stuff, it just feels real to me. Now, in terms of the story and what I enjoyed about it, I do love how, you know, you got 3PO, R2 going through Tatooine, and they meet Luke, and then obviously Uncle Owen, and we meet Obi-Wan through there as well. I always used to love Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I felt that the film just kicks up a gear when they get to Mos Eisley, meet Han Solo for the first time, Chewbacca. Yeah, I love Chewie. And you got to get to that part with Greedo and the whole shootout, and you could talk about the controversy of that, but I remember as a kid watching it and thinking, wow, you know, Han Solo is pretty badass. Now, moving on from that, you've got how they go up there. They need to get to Alderaan to get the Death Star plans back to, you know, obviously, you know, they've got to find Princess Leia, and from there they're captured by the Empire. They're put into the Death Star. I always found as a kid, not that this was a slow part, but the whole part of them getting in there and Obi-Wan getting to the tractor beam to dismantle it, and Han and Luke and Chewie all trying to, like, you know, obviously, you know, getting the stormtrooper uniforms and breaking. There's a few action sequences. We meet Princess Leia. Everything works out fine. There's a few action sequences, and you've got, well, spoilers, Obi-Wan Kenobi gets killed. Darth Vader isn't a prominent figure in this as well, obviously. And my favourite parts of the film are, I'd say, the last act of the film. The whole trench run is amazing, and I remember as a kid thinking, wouldn't it be great to be like Luke and fly an X-Wing through a trench like that and, you know, save the day as he does. I really love the throne room sequence as well. The music is just fantastic. And, you know, Chewie didn't get a medal, yes we know. My favourite parts of episode 4 have got to be the binary sunset. Yeah, definitely. And the music that goes with that by John Williams. You've got you can go through all of John Williams' hits throughout all the Star Wars films, but for me, Binary Sunset is up there in the top 5, right? For sure. Now, the lightsaber fights in this aren't the best, obviously, but you've got an old guy versus, you know, half a robot. Darth Vader himself, you know, it's not the best, and a lot of people, there's some guys on the net that made their own versions of the fight which look fantastic. And for, you know, the special editions, what they did with, you know, Jabba the Hutt and the few extra little bits, some parts are good and some parts aren't good. I feel that the Jabba the Hutt in the special edition sequence kind of like, it's okay, but even without all these parts and all these bits that George Lucas has thrown in, all these digital animations and these digital effects, it takes it away from his vision. Now I know he says this is his vision of what he wanted, but as me, as a, you know, as watching it as a kid, I remember that, and you know, you can't call me a fanboy, but it's more about how you can take something that you grew up watching and then to see someone do that to it and change a few things, it just takes away from like what you grew up watching, if that makes sense. So the trench run, binary sunset, they're my key things in the film. Now some people say it's a bit slow at points as well. I think, you know, in terms of, it started the whole trilogy, okay? Now at the time, you know, George Lucas had said that he didn't know if it was going to be a trilogy. It was just called Star Wars, and then it got turned into episode 4. So A New Hope, Help Me Obi-Wan Kenobi, You Can My Only Hope, you know, Carrie Fisher in there as well. The first time we meet Princess Leia, and all these characters that we meet, it's all set up properly, the character construction, the narrative goes well, and then you've got this whole ending at the end with, you know, the destruction of the Death Star. I really like Moff Tarkin, you know, Peter Cushing plays a really good role. And in terms of my final rating for A New Hope, I would definitely give A New Hope possibly I'm giving it an 8.5 out of 10 for me. Why does it lose 1.5 marks? Just think at times the pacing, and there has been a few stories about the editing phase of Star Wars A New Hope, and you can look that up on the internet as well if you want to. But for me, at times as a kid, I did enjoy watching A New Hope, but at times I was bored as a young kid. Now I watch it, I'm not as bored obviously, but 8.5 for me, which is still an amazing score. And now we talk about episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. What can I say about Empire? Well, I'll tell you one thing. A lot of people ask me, hey Daska, what's your favorite films of all time? Now it's very hard to like put a list out there, and I've tried to a few times, and maybe I'll do a video on it, but my number one, if I had to, is The Empire Strikes Back. And why is that? Well, look, it's just the film as a whole itself is perfect in my opinion. The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite film of all time. And why? I just think the way it goes about following on from A New Hope, it just ups the ante in terms of themes, in terms of who the characters are and what journey they need to go on, especially Luke. And you've got these, after the Battle of Hoth, you've got these two separate storylines that happen. You've got Luke, who meets the Jedi Master Yoda, which is again an iconic character in the Star Wars universe. And then you've got Han Solo and Leia trying to get away from the Empire. And you've got the asteroid chase. Then he ends up on Bespin and we meet Lando Calrissian. In the meantime, you've got Luke, who's training to be a Jedi, has all these visions. You know, I remember as a kid that cave sequence really scared me as a kid, obviously. And then he leaves, he gets to Bespin, and you've just had all these battle sequences, and then in the middle of the film, this development between Yoda and Luke and the training and meeting Lando, two different stories that come together at the end with obviously Darth Vader, who wants to, you know, obviously kill Luke Skywalker, but, and I'm not going to give away anything in terms of spoilers, but you know what, spoilers, here we go. You've got that last lightsaber fight, which is amazingly shot as well, amazingly lit, and a lot different to obviously A New Hope. And you've got that whole big major spoiler at the end about, well, if you haven't watched it already, about Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father, which just completely throws the story into an amazing kind of spin where Luke decides, well, you know what, I don't want to join my father, I'd rather like let go and fall down this giant chasm. And he does, and he's obviously saved by Leia and Lando. The whole thing with Han Solo being frozen into carbonite, the introduction of Boba Fett, the humor between Chewie and Han throughout the film. There's so many good scenes in it. And I think in terms of my favorite musical scores in it, obviously the Imperial March, number one, but I think the Carbon Freeze theme when Han Solo's just about to be put into the carbon freeze and then he gets pulled out of the carbon freeze as well. I really like that theme as well, it's fantastic. Boba Fett's a good character, even though a lot of people say he's overrated. I don't know to that extent. The one gripe I do have with the special editions in this is definitely how they changed Boba Fett's voice. I remember as a kid, you know, Boba Fett's voice was like real kind of menacing. Now it just sounds, I mean, I know they're trying to go from the original, the clones from the episode 2, but it just doesn't work well for me. So that was one little thing I didn't like. Plus, the other part in the special editions with the Wampa, you can actually see it as it's coming to attack Luke. Didn't like that either. Other little parts didn't really bother me, but my favorite parts of the film are definitely when Yoda's got his training, the last lightsaber battle sequence, and definitely the cave scene as well for me. But as a whole, it's a perfect film. Start, beginning, middle, end, everything works well. In a rating, because it's my favorite film of all time, you know, it's a big call, I'm giving it 10 out of 10. People don't agree with me, whatever, but I love this film. I know every word in this movie off by heart. I still teach it to this day to some of my students, and it's just a perfect story. And it leads, and it ends on that low note where you're like, well, all these questions that are unanswered, blah. And it leads into Return of the Jedi, which is episode 6. So 10 out of 10 for me for Empire Strikes Back. My favorite film, and I can't really see any other Star Wars film beating it at all. And that leads me to episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Let's not get into it too much here. A lot of people aren't fans of this. I'm going to be very quick about Return of the Jedi, okay? It's been put in this kind of category where, oh yeah, the Ewoks, and you know, it's just for the toys and the marketing and all that. I get it, I understand it. But behind all that, you scrape behind it, you've still, behind all the Ewoks and everything, you've still got a great story. You've got the introduction of the Emperor, which is like a key villain in this whole series, which obviously we're going to see in the new film as well, episode 9. And again, you've got another awesome lightsaber fight. The themes behind it, we find out more info on Luke and Leia. You know, Han Solo's got questions about, you know, what's going on, and then he finds out about what happened. You've got the death of Yoda. You've got another attack on the Death Star. You know, a lot of people say it's just like, oh, well, it's copying A New Hope. And, you know, Force Awakens copied Return of the Jedi. It was a soft reboot. We'll talk about that another time. But apart from, you know, the Ewoks, I get it. There's still the opening act in this film goes for, what, 20-25 minutes with Jabba the Hutt. There was some awesome action sequences there. And then you've got Luke speaking to Yoda again. We've got this whole thing between Luke doesn't want to face his father and kill him, and you've got another the two battle sequences. The way the parallel editing works at the end between how Luke confronts the Emperor, the space fight for the Death Star, the second time they go into the newly constructed one, and the Battle of Endor. I think everything works well in terms of the special edition versions. I did and didn't like what they did with the ending. I didn't like how they actually changed the song, because I really love Nub Nub, or whatever it was called. But I do like I didn't like how they took it out, but I do enjoy how they changed it around a bit and like showed all the different locations, even though it does look a bit out of place at times. Now with Return of the Jedi, like I was saying, it does get a lot of flack about not being, you know, a proper, like, you know, Star Wars film and more for the marketing. If you look past all that, it's actually a great film, and it's one that I can sit down and watch probably a bit more than A New Hope at times. And I think it ends the trilogy on a great note, and it should have ended at that, in my opinion, as well. I mean, you know, everyone loves, some people like Force Awakens and Last Jedi, but if you left it like that, it would have worked out well. So in terms of Return of the Jedi, my rating, I'm not going to rate it above A New Hope, but I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10 for me. And that's me. That's 8 out of 10 for Return of the Jedi. And guys, look, I hope you enjoyed this different type of review where I sit there and have a cup of coffee and discuss the 3 Star Wars films that I grew up watching. And obviously soon I'll give you guys my episode 7 and 8 reviews. If you didn't agree with anything I said, please let me know in the comments what you thought of what I gave, the ratings I gave them. If you want to leave me a like, if you like the video, please do so, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys, maybe out here again, on the next episode of DASKA Discusses. Boom!